Welcome to part 3 of the Ivan Clifford Namihas case. As a reminder, topics may be triggering. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. The people mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in court. Despite all the evidence against Dr. Namihas, he had a lot of supporters, fellow friends, and members of the SDA Church. A loyal employee of nearly 2 decades, Maria Kenyon told reporters in a January 18, 1995 Orange County Register article, and I quote, "God, they've done enough damage to him already. How dreadful. He didn't think the Postal Service was after him," unquote. An active member of the new church he was attending, the 2-story Mountain View Seventh-day Adventist Church in West Las Vegas, said that he would go to their weekly Saturday morning church services, Bible study during the week, and showed up to volleyball games on Thursday nights. Larry Lee told the press in a July 30th, 1994 Orange County Register article, and I quote, "He had the tendency to be a little too hard on some players. He wanted to be the best, and we were just there to have a good time," unquote. A March 12, 1992 Orange County Register article provided the following information. Medical assistant Jackie Weltzine explained trusting Dr. Namihas during her 3 months of working at his office and crying every morning due to the influx of hate calls she had to deal with due to the over 160 sexual assault allegations she believed to be untrue. 37-year-old patient of 11 years, Rosalie Romo, told reporters, and I quote, "I don't believe it. He's an excellent doctor. Me, I don't care what they say. I'm still coming, and that's the way it's going to be," unquote. 54-year-old patient of 30 years, Jerry Powell, says, and I quote, "I'm so angry I could just die. I can't for the life of me understand this. It's not true. It's really sick," unquote. An April 5, 1992 Orange County Register article provided the following information. If any of the doctors would have spoken up about the sexual abuse allegations and challenged Dr. Namihas, who was a major shareholder of the Tustin Hospital, they might have lost their jobs. Dr. Eugene Scott, who worked with Dr. Namihas from 1972 to 1991, told reporters, and I quote, "He was a member of the board of directors who controlled who got the laboratory contracts. There were 10 guys waiting to grab your spot," unquote. The Orange County Register reached out to about 50 doctors and nurses who worked with Dr. Namihas. Only 7 of them would go on record to say they were aware that nurses and patients had complained about Namihas. 3 doctors whose staff members told the press that they confronted Namihas about his behavior strongly stand by saying they knew nothing about it. 6 doctors would not go on record, fearing Dr. Namihas would sue them. 2 doctors who wanted to remain anonymous said that some doctors did try to, quote, "regulate Namihas, but they said they are gagged by the confidentiality rules that surround hospital disciplinary actions." Namihas had been called before the Tustin Hospital's executive board on 2 occasions after alleged allegations he molested patients and sexually harassed nurses. Although the hospital had gotten complaints about this real-life kukui, he continued to practice medicine there. A USC professor of medical ethics, Dr. Alexander Capron, teaches that doctors are obligated to pursue every complaint from patient or staff member when a fellow doctor is doing something morally, ethically, or medically wrong. Dr. Herbert Schwartz, chief of staff at Tustin Community Hospital, told reporters, and I quote, "The climate of the medical community at the time allowed it to happen," unquote, although he himself admitted to knowing there were many allegations against Namihas at the Tustin Hospital in the mid-1970s. A former pathology lab technician at Tustin Hospital, Joanne Liakos, said, and I quote, "The women and staff at the time would just shrug off the doctor's sexual banter. It's like compliments, but sexually. You just laugh. That was your way of moving up," unquote. Dr. Robin Wolfson, who worked with Dr. Namihas, said, and I quote, "During surgery, he would make comments kind of flirtatious about how well equipped he was and what good time he could show the nurses," unquote. Sharon Chase, an office manager, remembers telling a doctor that Namihas had kissed her and often used vulgar language, asked her for sex, and tried convincing her to leave her husband. She was young and naive and thought all doctors were like that, and continued to see him for several years because gynecologists in the 60s were hard to find. When she told a new doctor about the sexual abuse she experienced, the doctor told her that Namihas was just nuts. Dr. Gerald Podolak, who worked with Dr. Namihas, said that one time a patient told him that Namihas had caressed her and kissed her, to which he told reporters, and I quote, "I can remember being hugged and kissed after a delivery. I really didn't put too much together," unquote. Doctors told the press that they did not want to get involved because the issues were moral and not medical. Again, the doctors blamed the woman brain for misinterpreting procedures. Dr. J. Victor Rosinski Jr. said that he called Namihas out on his gross behavior after 3 of his patients complained about sexual abuse at the hands of Namihas. Dr. Rosinski and Dr. Frank Obulgen stopped referring patients to Namihas. When new doctors would move into the practice, they were warned about Namihas's predatory behavior. Dr. John C. Mullen said that he was warned when he moved into the practice in 1972 that, and I quote, "The warnings were of a sexual nature, kind of vague, but I heard from a couple of different sources, so I took them as valid," unquote. In 1975, a group of doctors penned a letter to the medical board about their patients' and staff's complaints. Dr. Jerry Ham, whose practice was right next to Namihas before he fled, said, and I quote, "You can't take action on a locker room joke, and that the public just needs to trust physicians that peer review is being performed and the appropriate action is being taken, and that physicians are not running around hurting people left and right when no one is watching," unquote.